Bonsoir. Merci. Thank you for having me. My name is Dr. AISEN CARO CHACIN. I run the medical prototyping lab at the University of Texas Medical Branch, where I'm also an assistant professor at the School of Medicine, and I'm an artist. So the medical prototyping lab at UTMB is a space for working with medical practitioners to materialize their ideas and prepare students for research, creativity, and translation of medical innovation from an interdisciplinary perspective. A lot of the work that I do there is prototyping medical devices, but also work with simulation. This is an example of an ultrasound phantom. Ultrasound, or sonography, is commonly used as a method for diagnostic medical imaging to gain non-invasive visual insight into the body. Ultrasound phantoms are simulation models made to resemble the body with materials that have similar acoustic impedance and anatomical characteristics. These models are used to train medical staff to learn how to use sonography equipment to perform medical procedures such as IV cannulation. So here you can see a nurse using one of our models, and this nurse will use this model as a nurse educator to teach other nurses how to insert IVs using ultrasound. So in a way, as a sound artist and as a material visual artist, these worlds kind of collide for me here, as I was learning how to make sculptures that were to be seen with sound to create images that resemble the body. So here you see how I'm trying to learn how to see with ultrasound myself so that I can create these models. So you can see these X's that as I turn the ultrasound probe around, trying to understand how to create voids and how to create wide lines and what each of those mean. And then I did a workshop in Ljubljana with artists and these gelatins to create paintings that are both painting sculptures, I guess, and gels that can be seen with sound. Here you can see it says hi, and then there's a heart, and a circle, and two squares. And then in March of 2023, I took this skill of creating paintings to be seen with sound to the TTT camp by Adam Soretsky, where we were working on trying to understand IVF through an artistic lens, in vitro fertilization. And so it's a very new science. I think the first test tube babies from the 80s. And there's not a lot of simulation models made for this. And so in trying to understand how to see with sound, we created this egg hunt where we put flowers and rocks, and we investigated our own bodies in an artistic way, completely free. Oops. There's a video here. I guess it disappeared. But we made these follicles to simulate the follicles that have each egg in the ovaries. So when you're doing IVF, the first thing we need to do is take the oocytes, which are the cells that are primordial for a human or an embryo to become. And so for men, it's really easy to get sperm. I'm sure you know how that works. But to get an egg is a lot more complicated. Women have one egg that matures once a month, and that's called ovulation. And so, in order for women to have a stock of frozen eggs, you have to stimulate them with follicle stimulating hormone and with luteinizing hormone. And so, they give us a lot of this hormone, and our ovaries get really big, kind of like melon sizes. And so they mature many eggs at once by giving us a big load of these hormones. And so our ovaries have these follicles, which are the simulation we made here. And these follicles contain a very small egg inside. And so the procedure is done also with ultrasound, with an ultrasonic probe that is inserted in the vaginal canal. And then with ultrasound, they can see these follicles full of fluid and then extract one by one to get as many eggs as possible. Women can get anywhere from 5 to 20 eggs in each of these rounds. And so we created these follicles using a technique called spherification in molecular gastronomy, which use alginate and calcium in order to make a gelatin that's liquid inside. Sound, beyond just medical imaging and ultrasound, also has another life in therapeutics. And it's also it can be part of creating a new experience for health. During the pandemic, I created EURIS, an emergency use resuscitation system, another ventilator. We thought that we would run out of ventilators, and so we decided to automate an ambu bag and use a blood pressure cuff to actuate it, and then connected each of these valves to the air and vacuum in each of the patient rooms. And so as the air pushes through into the blood pressure cuff, it squeezes the ambu bag, which is usually a manual resuscitation system, and then it uses vacuum to extract the air in order for us to get the speed that we need for the breaths per minute. And so we conducted animal studies. As you can see, when you're actually ventilating a living thing, this is a sheep, it's a lot slower. So at the beginning, we were trying to get enough volume and the fastest speed that you could ever breathe in order to get a ventilator with the same specs than proper ventilators. But for the experimentation, we did 6 breaths per minute with a 600 tidal volume. So my work really kind of centers around the human-machine relationship. And I have this quote from Freud: "With every tool, man is perfecting his own organs, whether motor or sensory, or is removing the limits of their functioning." And so with this project, I really started thinking about the end of life and this idea of being connected to a critical care machine. And so I started thinking of making an opera with artificial intelligence and considering the role of artificial intelligence in a machine of critical care. So what if the ventilator also had a semi-consciousness? What if when you were connected to a critical care machine, you would also have to ask the machine its opinion whether it wanted to be disconnected from that person that they are actually ventilating? What if the machine found a purpose in life, its own life, by ventilating somebody, and then when they disconnect from that person they're ventilating, they're also, in a way, disconnecting from their own meaning? And so, this is Robert Pearson. He's my good friend, or he was. He was an experimental pianist, and in the last few years he got diagnosed with ALS, which is a neurodegenerative disease that slowly starts paralyzing your body. And as a pianist, I couldn't imagine a worse ending, where you can't play for the last whole year of your life. But you could still listen. And so I went to Robert, and he could only communicate with a screen that you can see here. It would follow his pupil, and he could spell out. And so I asked Robert if he would be the main character in my opera. Since he was in this condition, I thought he would be a great source of information about what it's like to be connected to a critical care machine, a ventilator. And so he agreed. So this was Robert when he couldn't move anymore, writing in his iPad, or it wasn't an iPad, but his ALS monitor that followed his pupil. His tongue was now his pupil. He could only speak through his eyes, and he wrote, "To the nomads of Decipher, the casualties of creation, the ravage open fields. My anguish runs deep through my shallow veins. My heart takes its last breath. My eyes take their last stare. There is no hope in this white room, just ghosts and shadows. Ambitious strife, ravens and silence, mocking time. Infinite conclusion of solitary dreams. I'm a stranger to life. and not accustomed to death. This feeling of just being suspended and tethered to life from a machine. And he has many poems like this, and so he started as a painter, then he turned into an experimental pianist, and at the end of his life, a poet. And so we decided to make the Act X for him and perform it for him. And so I brought my piano, we brought lights, and we brought 4 speakers to create surround sound. And so we had a lighting that would go with different parts of the act. And we asked him where he wanted to travel to. And so he used this quadraphonic setup for sound to make him feel like he was immersed in a different environment. And so he could hear the ocean, he could hear the wind, he could hear a distant Greek music because he wanted to go to a remote Greek island. And so, in collaboration with Lena Ortega, who you can see there, we made this act for him. And so we also used artificial intelligence to process part of the video from the performance for the opera. Not only was it just conceptually thinking about what the role of AI would be if it was installed on a critical care machine, but also processing the video of the actual instance and performance. And so using the software, you can feed it information of how you want it to process the image. And so I wrote consciousness, human-machine relationship, intensive care, an experimental pianist tethered to a life-sustaining machine. Here's an exchange. And so AI would process these images and these words and create kind of an alternative reality for Robert. And so AI would create these bizarre images. can hear the beach. And the seagulls. And my piano. And the subtleness and the darkness and the subconsciousness and the dreamlike state of a person falling into unconsciousness as they are dying in the care of a critical machine that tethers them to life. It's glitchy. And bizarre. And kitschy. And repetitive and bad quality, like a life would be when you're tethered to a machine, when you're stuck in bed for days waiting to die, not used to death. And definitely not used to this kind of life. Emily's digital voice. And the terrible quality of the audio. out of sync. And all the clipping, the uncaptured highs. So now this project bifurcates and the end-of-life opera will continue, and then we will create a clinical study so that we can understand what the effect of quadraphonic immersive 3D reality and sound at the end of life can do for patients that are simply on pain medication so that they can curb the pain as they are dying. And so this project was done in collaboration with Lena Ortega, Juan Escudero, Sara Menendez, Mustafa El Sayed, and me, and also Emily Ayer. And here are the AI tools we used. I guess they're agents as well. So ChatGPT, who did the lyrics from The Woman, who was representing the AI machine, OpenAI, Crea, and Grammarly. And this was presented at LLEP, which is a festival as part of the Cátedra Inés Amor of UNAM in Mexico. And it was in part funded by this institution and the University of Texas Medical Branch. And if you're interested to hear more of Robert's music, you can find it here at robertpearson.bandcamp.com. And he has now passed a few weeks ago, so I'm honored if you look at his work, because he was just afraid that he would be forgotten. And the reality is we don't know how to die. I feel like after this project, I've had a lot of questions about sound art and the machine-human relationship, and with all the war upcoming and that we were living, I wrote this essay called Obsessed with Speed, at most fear the acceleration past the post-materials supersonic X-future. And it really starts with looking at the futurists and the art of noises world that was inspired by a car crash. Oh, damn it. I guess we have to watch this on YouTube. So machine guns in World War I. Were kind of an inspiration to Marinetti. Every 5 seconds, siege cannons gutting space in a chord, zang, tum, tum, mutiny of 500 echoes smashing, scattering it into infinity. In the center of this hateful zang, tum, tum area of 50 square kilometers, leaping bursts, lacerations, fists, rapid fire batteries, violence, ferocity, regularity, this deep bass scanning the strange, shrill, frantic crowds of the battle. Fury, breathless, ears, eyes, nostrils now open. Load, fire! What a joy to hear, to smell completely of the machine guns screaming, breathless under the stings of slaps. Thrack, thrack, whip, pick, pack, boom, tum. Weirdness sleeps 200 meters range. And then we broke the speed of sound. This is a supersonic boom. The way that works is that we were finally able to go faster than the speed of sound. And normally when we're going the speed of sound, you see that we're kind of surrounded in a concentric circle of waves as we create the sound. And then when you go super fast, supersonically fast, you create a cone, and so the Doppler effect doesn't work anymore because it's going faster, and so you break it. Escaping death, our discomfort with the temporality of our species and our own lives transposed to other species as a form of shame to bring about the innocence of less aware, less able species, subject to natural forces with no technology to escape their bodies and biophysical limitations. It means human life disruption, our demise, the Earth's demise, and the end of many others. We don't know how to die. Machines are our answer to the finitude of our existence. They are a sort of manifested hope to reach and exist as other realms of material fragility, divorced from the need of biospheric nurture, gas exchange, and organic consumption. They are living mirages that traverse a universe made for an electromagnetic spectrum, not a particle soup that can give life and receive waste, but an empty void with light transmitting capabilities, magnetic resonance, and other radiating properties that we have learned to measure and harness. It is the fault of our energy hunger. It's funny that speed is also the name of a drug. We are on speed, and we need to slow down. What is the complex that propulses the speed to manufacture interplanetary humanity? Another boom. Electromagnetic memory survives, scouting out a potential cold inducted void. And so when will we break the speed of time? Ex-futurism is post-plan, a departure from the pretext of structured foresight and predictability and objective control into a realm of being awake in the process, listening, aware and retrospectively freed from voracious consumption imperative of limitless access. This post-plan method pauses in an expanse of catalytic reaction. It processes and uses emergence and physical phenomena to interfere with and evolve in slow motion through matter, conscious of the impact of observation and access to power. The disruptive essence of catalysis focuses observers on the experience of change. Post-material is the processing and reformatting of matter to reemerge in a new conditional state, entangled by transference, in superposition, where the perceptual apparatus is the medium, becoming aware in the transformation process. And so with that, I invite you to come tomorrow to see the performance of X Material, X Future, experimental sound. If you have any ideas or questions, feel free to message me at accchacin@utmb.edu. And thank you very much.